Andy Murray's mental mistakes in the Australian Open final. Now, even though many of us kind of expected Federer to take it, Andy still had a great chance, believe it or not, to win this match and to actually take claim to his first Grand Slam victory. Oh yeah, he could have very well done it if he would have handled his nerves better and avoided the 4 mental mistakes that I'm about to share with you. So, check him out here with the hopes of possibly you avoiding these mistakes in your next match. Mental mistake number 1. Mental tension and wasted winning opportunities. You see, Murray was nervous from the get-go. So internally rattled, it really affected his court movement and his ability to capitalize on short balls. And because of that, there were many times during the first set where Andy failed to take advantage of his hard work. He would start to close the door on a point, get Roger on the defense with a great shot to his backhand, and then just sit back there 2 or 3 steps behind the baseline, waiting for Roger to get back in position again. Then, he just hit another stroke from virtually the same spot as the prior one. He seemingly would do everything imaginable except come in and attack Federer when the opportunities presented themselves. What it looked like to me was that Andy wanted to sit back and let Roger beat himself. A pretty ill-advised strategy, I would say, because Roger doesn't tend to do that often. So, in other words, he would close the door, and right before he sealed it, he would swing it right back open for Roger to get back in the point time and time again. And as he continued to do this, the deficit kept getting wider and wider in Federer's favor. And Federer, being the great champ that he is, would come back around and repeatedly make the best of that second chance with a winner of his own. And with that came extra pressure on Andy and further blocked him from being able to play some carefree tennis. So, instead of loosening up as the match progressed, he became even tighter and even more reluctant to leave the baseline. And at that point, he really didn't want to make a mistake. He even looked frozen at times. He wasn't moving, floating effortlessly or freely at all. Now, how did I come to the strong conclusion that it was a nerve-related issue? Well, because Andy loves to come in. He loves to attack. In fact, that's what he's been doing all tournament long. And on top of that, he's been pretty successful when he's done it. He's won a whopping 80.2% of the points when he's made an advance to the net. So why would he stop now when it could mean the biggest win of his career? Nerves. He was playing not to lose the match instead of playing to win the match. Big difference. It must have been driving his coach and supporters box insane. I mean, after the match, Roger even said that he noticed Andy was a bit passive in the match, and that gave him some great opportunities to capitalize on, which he did. How do you correct this? Well, you can learn from Andy's mistake and take the initiative when you have your opponent on the run. Don't play to lose, play to win that thing. And this is important. Once you see that you've done a great job, got your opponent in a defensive position, and got him or her on the ropes, you've got to turn on the attack switch. Get your butt off that baseline and advance. Now hey, if you don't feel comfortable going to net, at least come forward some to cut off more of your opponent's angles and apply some added pressure of your own. This will hopefully force them into wanking a whole lot more shots than executing them correctly, which will in turn produce more errors. Mental mistake number 2. Murray rolled the old emotional roller coaster. Now this one really hurt him. He was wearing his heart on his sleeve throughout a great piece of that match. You could see it in his face, in his body language, and of course, when he slammed his racket down during that third set. What did that show? that showed us, and more importantly, his opponent, that he was riding an emotional wave and could be due to crash against those rocks at any given moment. Oh yeah, and Roger, being the smart champ that he is once again, noticed this too. After the match, when interviewed, he cited this, and he said that this was a cue for him to get even more aggressive with Andy and to make him break that much faster. I mean, he was already bending. How do you fix this problem? Correct it. You correct it. And here's how. You never want to show your emotions out there or get too emotional during a match. Why? Because you're never going to be working on an emotionally level playing field. You're going to be on cloud 9 when you win a point, and then down in the dumps 6 feet under when you lose one. You'll be in mental limbo throughout the entire thing and have no stability out there. You'll be playing under different circumstances almost every time you swing. You don't want that. If you stay even keel and don't let yourself get too attached to any one point or circumstance, you'll have much more of a mental balance throughout, and the likelihood of you getting rattled will dramatically decrease. Oh, and by keeping it inside, you won't be giving your opponent's confidence a royal boost or add fuel to your opponent's competitive fire. You don't want to do that. You don't want to add to it. You want to put it out. Mental mistake number 3. Double fault drama. Murray's ability to get his serve in was a major problem throughout the Australian Open final. And you know what? That really took me for a spell, because throughout all of Andy's matches leading up to the final, his serve was pretty on. I mean, in 19 sets against the world's best, he only double faulted 9 times. That's right, 9 times. That's pretty remarkable if you ask me. But against the great R. Fed, it took a turn for the worse. Quickly. Murray had already accumulated 3 double faults by the time the second set rolled around. And this is the only match he lost. See a pattern? Now the truth is, for Murray, Federer, and for you, for any tennis player for that matter, the serve is your flagship, one of your most important weapons. It's the steering wheel for your game plan. It helps everything else in your arsenal flow for you. And if that starts to go south, everything else will be taking the plunge very soon afterwards. Now, how do we fix this? Diversify your game. Now, practice makes perfect, right? Well, actually, I tend to say perfect practice makes perfect, but you get the point. You don't want to only focus on having great ground strokes, or say, I'll get to my serve later, or I can win with my forehand. It's pretty strong. That alone won't get you the win, no matter if you have the best ground strokes in the game or the best volleys anybody's ever seen. So, in total, you want to make sure to dedicate just as much time or even more time to strengthening your serve, okay, than your other strokes. You see, having a strong serving game will not only boost your confidence through the roof, but it'll allow you to dictate the tempo and control the point from the very start. Do that and it's not going to do you any good. You don't want to only win every now and then, do you? The more often you hold serve, the more likely the win will follow, point blank. Oh, something to note that's very important. During your practice sessions and exhibition match play, you want to make sure that you're serving during pressure situations, i.e. simulated sets with some bragging rights or some kind of wager on the line. I prefer a car wash or a wash and wax. Because yeah, you may be able to do it 49 out of 50 times when your mind is free and clear, but in a real match, when you have high stakes and a fire-breathing opponent staring at you from the other side, it's going to be a whole different world. You also want to gain experience serving with a lead as well as serving from behind. Okay, because the dynamics are different, the emotions and the feelings are different during those times. The more you do this, and the more you serve during pressure situations, the better you'll serve in pressure situations. Make sense? Mental mistake number 4. A tentative second serve. Now, because Andy's nerves were getting the best of him in many cases, it not only affected his first serve, but it also made the speed of his second serve take a turn for the worst. I mean, he couldn't defend well with it at all. Being down to the number 1 player in the world on one of the biggest stages in the world can do that to you. You see, since he wasn't able to blow us away, or his opponent for that matter, with his first serve percentage, he was forced into a lot of second serve situations. And when he was attempting to execute them, the outcome wasn't very pleasant. He tightened up, in my opinion. And as a result, he failed to get much pace on the second serves he did get in. And as a result of that, he put himself in very defensive positions that Roger was able to take full advantage of. Bang! 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 Enough said. I mean, listen, even though your main goal is to get the ball in play on your second serve, you don't want to put the point on a silver platter for your opponent to just gobble up and devour. You at least need to have something on it. If you don't, it's only going to give your opponent tons of free points and give him a royal boost in that ever so precious confidence department. 2 big negatives. So, how do you fix this? It's simple. Play with this in practice and find a good midpoint between your first serve and your second. You want your serve strong enough so it doesn't get crushed. And you want it to have enough spin to keep it controlled and to bring it down into the box. Okay, play with it, find that midpoint, and you'll be great. You don't want to serve the ball like a first serve because the probability of it going in will go down. Okay, you don't want to serve it like a cream puff because you'll get whipped creamed. Okay, so saying your nerves are fine, you're doing all right, you definitely want to make sure that you have that speed kind of locked in there. You don't want to be guessing when you're up there serving your second serve. How hard should I hit it now? What should I do? You want to already have that locked into place so you can just go up there and go through the motions so you can worry about the tons of other stuff that you need to think about once the serve gets in. Mental mistake number 5. Murray stuck with a broken game plan. Murray started out the match playing very tentative and very passive on his shots. And it looked as if he was just waiting for Roger to make an error, right? Which we talked about before, which he rarely does. It seemed like the inner part of the court was a pit of wild pythons and he didn't want to get bit. He was standing way behind the baseline and would never cross it. Now this is the key. It wasn't working. All it did was produce a 3-6 first set loss. Now, okay, you might say he made a mistake. All players, all human beings, all fish, animals, whatever, make mistakes. Fair enough. But when he saw it wasn't working, he didn't change his main match strategy that was digging him a hole 6 feet deep. He stuck with the same game plan that got him playing catch-up until when? Until right before the beginning of the third set. That's way too long. He waited almost 2 hours before he realized something had to change. That's way too long. And that's when he finally started to become more aggressive. He started coming inside the court more and getting to the net. But by that time, he had already dug himself in a hole few rarely come back from. 2 sets down against the world's number 1, perhaps the best player to ever touch a tennis ball. Now granted, when he started to do it consistently, back to back to back, it got him all the way to a 5-2 lead. But then Federer came back to life and ruined the young number 5 Players Championship hopes. Now, why did this happen? Because he waited too long. Federer was already very relaxed and in a tremendous groove by that time. I mean, he had won the 2 sets and it was cruising. So though the strategy change helped, it just wasn't enough once Federer got going. Now, if he had done it earlier, who knows? Maybe the tempo of the match would have shifted and we would have a different outcome. But he didn't give himself a chance to. So, how do you fix this? What's the moral of this story? Now, as I learned from one of my coaches, Kirk Wilson, many years ago, you don't want to stick with a strategy that's ineffective. No, you don't want to wait until you've played 60% of your match and your opponent is already feeling it either before you start to analyze what's working and what's not. And no, you don't want to wait until you've played 60% of your match and your opponent is already feeling it before you start to analyze what's working and what's not. Whether it's your ground strokes, your serve, your baseline strategy, your weakness exploitation techniques, your court coverage, or what angles you're using, you want to start doing that immediately, as soon as the first couple of games of the match. That way, you can correct it and decrease your chances of being faced with an uphill battle. Alright guys, hopefully you enjoyed this Aussie Open. I wish Andy the best of luck in his next tournament. Let me know how you guys like these tips by commenting in the box below. Alright, I'd love to hear from you. And as always, thanks for watching and have a great day and an even better game. Be sure to check out the websites here also. TennisMindCamp.com/blog. You'll gain access to tons of more tennis tips on there. And if you're interested in our 19-hour best-selling instructional course full of kick-butt tennis secrets that'll crush your losing streak, go to TennisMindCamp.com/course. Now it's bye for real this time. Have a good one.